I hope everybody's well out there in TSoA land. Fucking, this one here, this is going to be my view, the view of Scoops, Brant Daniel, on the RICO case, starting from the get-go when I was in Corcoran, right before I got here to New Folsom, Ad City. So I'm in Corcoran doing my thing. Had about 6 months left to the main line, getting out to shoot. And all of a sudden, one day, boom, like 10 IGI rushed my cell. Just me. And I'm living next door to one of my best friends. And but they singled me out and tell me it's a 602 here. And so I come out thinking maybe it's, 602 on my double cell status. And they tell me, no, something's going on. You'll find out in a minute. Well, they searched my cell, take all my property out of my cell, everything but my TV, my clothes, everything. I still didn't know what the fuck was going on. Well, about an hour later, they put me back in an empty cell and brought me a new 114D lock-up order. Says you have now been indicted on a RICO case out of the Eastern District of California. And that was it. I didn't know what I was indicted for, why, when, or where, blah, 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 till my wife told me on a visit. You remember that, baby girl?
Yep, you didn't even know what the hell was going on.
Right. I had no clue. Baby girl had to read it to me on my phone call, and then she came up to see me in Corcoran before they transferred me. So I was shocked, but kind of had an inkling that something was going on, just didn't know it was that. Well, so about 3 weeks go by, a month, not quite a month, and then they come into Corcoran deep, they came deep on me. SSU, OCS, Fed agent, I guess, and they came in deep, brought me out, took me out of the prison, and brought me to New Folsom, Ad City. So I get here, it's all strange to me that this is actually happening because I've never been through it,
Mm.
I've heard about it, but never experienced it, First-hand experience is something that, you gotta live through yourself. So fucking, I get here, and then get this. The next morning, IGI comes to my door and tells me who's a good dude and who's not a good dude. And that's in my surroundings, right? And I'm just baffled that they felt they could do that, right? I'm baffled. I'm surprised that they felt that it would have any bearing or any weight on my decisions or who I fuck with. So it kind of struck odd to me, and I wondered if they've been doing this with other people, other friends or woods or actives or any other races, like they play a pivotal part in our fucking program. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here with that weak bitch shit. You're a cop, dude. No cop's gonna tell me who's good and who's not. Get the fuck out of here. Well, then, a couple weeks go by, turns into a month, and I'm still sitting here. But, I had a couple court dates and talked to my lawyers and shit and found out how serious the charges were. They were pressing a death penalty on me. I was one of 5. And thank God for baby girl, being at my side all the way through this shit, my whole fucking last 16 years, And she came to see me, and I told her what was going on. She was just as shocked. Weren't you, baby girl?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of crazy, man.
Yeah.
So then, I'm thinking like, well, I guess I'm gonna fight this to the end, and we're gonna fucking make them prove it because the 115 doesn't show a gang nexus to the 115 in Salinas. The state didn't have a gang nexus, but the Fed somehow created a gang nexus out of the thin blue air. it was just all strange to me, you know. So imagine just doing your time and then boom, you get hit with a RICO case, and you know you don't even you can't even figure out why, and it's like what the fuck. But I finally get a copy of the complaint, read through it, seen all the fucking alleged wiretap phone calls that they claim to have. I've still not heard. I've heard 6 damn calls out of 180 that they claim to have between me and my friend. And it was just laughing and giggling and, shit like that and clowning each other. Yeah, banality, you know, just straight up banality, man, between 2 friends. And, but, you know, so that was like my first couple months of experience going through this. And then at the same time I'm going through this, the biggest fight in my life, the cabal of dirty cops here, dirty ISU cops here at New Folsom started to operate against me. And because I wouldn't play games with them, I wouldn't participate in their slanderous activities of 2 of my RICO case co-defendants, right? And, you know, and I heard, I was on the yard one day here in a cage, and there was an S&Y dude a couple of cages down, and one of the cops was talking shit about my co-defendant, and I checked him. He was talking shit with the S&Y, and I checked him. And they ain't like it, but I don't care. You know, that's not for them to do, go around trying to coerce and create new witnesses against us, you know?
Right.
And I didn't like it. I don't get down like that, man. And so I checked him, and from that day on, my time here at this prison turned into something I've never done. I'll 602 things here and there, or gone up a few asses here and there when it's called.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
But, you know, it was a strange situation for me to fight this biggest fight of my life, and then to be in a corrupt unit that this is the hornet's nest. This is where the case, 90% of it derived from was just prison. And little did I know how actually corrupt it really was, man. I mean, I always knew it was kind of fucked up, but never really did I know that it was this fucking bad until I started to see it develop. I couldn't even get a legal call with my lawyers. My legal visits were behind glass, where I visited my wife the weekend prior, you know, right there behind the cop desk, and it's a half-wall partition separating the visiting booth. It's a half wall. It's like a
no privacy
at a
at
gas
all.
station, but a half wall.
No privacy at all.
And my attorney, none. And my lawyers are sitting right behind the cop desk. There's 3 cops sitting maybe 4 feet away from them, and we're on a telephone. And I visit you on every time you come up.
Right, which is recorded.
My lawyers are like,
and then there's 4 cages, there's 4 rooms with cages in it that they can put you in for privacy. I think they're actually called attorney visiting booths. So,
right, exactly.
But they wouldn't let you have that.
They wouldn't let us have it. And it's like because they want the information for internal use purposes only. That's what they say. It's for our internal information purposes only, not to be used in a criminal court of law.
Well, it wouldn't be a problem if they weren't running their own RICO.
Right. So here I am fighting this case. Then I'm fighting the corrupt elements, and then I'm fighting this slanderous, lying, fucking rat activity. And this propaganda machine that's been going on with my name in it on these main lines and shit, because I don't conform to CDCR's.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So, you know, I'm fighting all this shit, and, you know, I got two good attorneys, and so, you know, I'm constantly seeing these cops that worked the tier. They worked the tier here at that time in 2019, go around coercing these SOIs. And it's striking me as odd. Like, why the fuck are they doing that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so, and I feel they're trying to help them take the stand. You know, they're trying to give them information so they can get up there and help the prosecution against me and my co-defendants. Well, IGI thinks there's a problem, and now they're wanting to try to get on my side of whatever problem they're pushing, and there is no problem. Nothing, you know? And it's just a lack of communication between two friends, and they're trying to enhance it. And so it's like Ronnie said in his one video, they came down to courtroom and showed me a fabricated kite. They kept doing this, and now I'm in the hornet's nest. Then, you know, my view of the RICO case, it's all created by a bunch of dirty cops and lying rats, and a few comments that they took out of context on a tapped cell phone. That is it, folks. I'm telling you now, that is it, baby girl. That's their whole thing, was taking shit out of context, making it fit their narrative, and selling it to the public and to a jury.
Well, and I think what's
pretty much been tampered.
What's really interesting is that they were doing it in the shadow of what I've been doing for you, as far as pulling you out of that whole prison mentality and bringing you into a more socially fit individual that's shedding that whole prison identity. The more I would pull you out of it, the more they try to pull you in, like that crab in the bucket thing.
So, the crab in the bucket thing. Yep. So, you know, this is in 2019. You know, I'm in need of my spine was broken, my back was broken because of a fucking unhealed surgery. It wasn't completely healed. And the right side of my spine had a crack in it, in my L4, L5 lower lumbar, and so I'm going through all types of fucking problems in my life, right? But I know whatever happens, I'm not breaking. Whatever happens in my life, I am not fucking breaking. And so you know, their cabal of dirty cops ramped up the rhetoric, right? They ramped up their rhetoric. They fucking did all types of dirty dog shit here at the prison, you know, and then the courts closed down because of COVID, and I really couldn't get nowhere. You know, my attorneys were denied visits for 14 months. Didn't even get a visit. And the only reason I got one legal call a week, the only reason I got one legal call a week was because of COVID hit, and no visitors were allowed to come in this prison for 14 months. So, and then get this, the prosecution still said, well, fuck it, he got legal mail. He can write his attorneys. That's enough. And you know, it turned out
you have 60 seconds remaining.
You can't have a civil conversation through correspondence. You cannot have the back and forth communication that you need.
But what they're not saying though, babe, is they're cracking open my legal mail. Right. So which they did. I can't have legal mail. And they got in trouble. Let me call back. Right, 5 times. They did it.
All right. We'll be right back. Sorry for the delay. Okay.
Incarcerated individual at the California State Prison for Brant, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
All right.
I'm back. So the fact of the matter is I had no line of communication with my lawyers that was completely confidential, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was pushed upon me for 14 months,
Mm-hmm.
So I
Wasn't there a
all the way
few
up
months
until
there? Wasn't there a few months there where there was no communication at all in those 14 months?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was like, I think about 75 days total. Something about that number right there. I'm not exactly sure, but it was about 75 days total.
It was a few months.
I could only send a couple of, right. And that is a few months, a couple months. And, but that's not the only time. That was during COVID, right? But during that COVID trip, I led all the way up to my surgery in 2020. That's when they fucking did this shit and planted the knife in my cell. And the whole trip with Kevin Steele. But I'll get to that in the next video after this. We're going to give you guys a couple videos here strictly on my view of this RICO case and how it came about. And, it's my opinion that the deal was cut when we came out to shoot in 2016 between the feds and CDCR to start indicting the short corridor Pelican Bay hunger strikers, which I am one of them. And there's about 240 of us. And if you look at the facts, there's a lot of us that's been RICO indicted. And that's just what I believe. I believe that they fucking fabricated this case out of a bunch of bullshit statements that they cherry-picked to fit their theory. And if you look at the facts, that's what you got.
Right. Well, especially that it was coercion, that the hunger strike was,
and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
That the hunger strikes had some ulterior motive than getting out of an impossible lifestyle.
Right.
As if that weren't enough.
Right. Exactly. Right. Right. So here I am fighting this shit, and I got all these dudes running around with rumors and gossip on. Getting it from IGI, cooperating with IGI, being on their side of the fence, basically, but on the under, and slandering my name, two or three of my co-defendants' name, up and down the state of California, CDCR, on the streets. They put these dudes in effect on the internet, the snitch tubers, to start smearing us to contaminate the jury pool. They're trying to coerce new witnesses. It's all a bizarre world for me, man. It's like, whoa, I've heard of this. I've seen it in books, conspiracy books. I've heard of it in prison before, but I've never been in the eye of the storm, per se,
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all crazy. But that's what the feds do. That's what the prison system is about.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always say not all the cops are dirty, right? No, there's some decent ones, right?
Well, I'd say that most of them aren't. Most of them are just average Joes,
right,
but they're
doing their thing.
Right.
Right. When you get dudes like this troll, these couple of trolls, especially real recognized real, these guys are dirty cops. They're the cabal of dirty cops, and they go around, lying and cheating, and probably got something to do with them other guys.
That they mentioned.
Death. I don't know. Right. That they mentioned. Right. They probably did something about that. They probably were involved in that somehow. But anyways, I won't get into that. I want to stick to the RICO case.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm fighting this case, man, that's it led up to the 115 crap with this weapon being planted. And the officer, like I said, man, if you look at the first video we ever did, or second video on here, I'm in the cage in this fucking office, and the officer's sitting right there, whose name I said before. I won't repeat it, but I said it before, though. And because it's on my paperwork, right? And so he's sitting right here in front of me. But yet, in the 115 itself, claims he was in my cell searching and found blank weapon and photographed blank weapon. And then in the 115, he says, look, Mr. Daniels in the cell window flipping me off. I know who he is. I know who I'm looking at. He don't have the camera. It's not him. It's a different officer. And he was in the office with me the entire 30 minutes while my cell allegedly was being searched.
Mm-hmm.
So how can he be in the office with me and in my cell?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but what he did was he took his homeboy was in my cell searching, but yeah, he's the one that wrote the 115. Now, I don't know why they did that. I do not know why they did that, but they did it.
Because they were all in cahoots. They were all together. They all made a decision.
Right.
That would be a conspiracy, and
Right.
that would be an act of racketeering in the interest to further their corrupt organization.
Falsifying documents. That's what it is. Like old Hector Bravo said, falsifying 1030s all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this ain't nothing to them. This is a normal program for them.
Mm-mm.
Right? It's a normal program, falsified.
But they knew it was part of those charges that they could beef it up. So how is what they're doing not RICO? They're the ones who should be set with a RICO case.
Now get this. So, I never had a problem with this officer, right? I never had a beef with these dudes other than coming to me and telling me who's good and who's bad and trying to play this game. I checked him. I said what I had to say, right? And, well, come to find out, they knew that I knew about Kevin Steele. And they knew that I sent it to my lawyers. So, imagine that. And next thing you know, I'm getting a knife stuck in my cell and this big old conspiracy that I'm going to murder a cop, which I've never even had a 115 on a cop, much less murder one. And so it was just all, like contrived, right? You talking about contrived?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was contrived. How is it? I'm looking, and I know in my heart, I'm looking at this dude in the office with me. Mm-hmm. 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. I'm in cuffs. He's watching my every move. Mm-hmm. But yet the 115 said he was in the cell searching. Mm-hmm. Bullshit. Mm-hmm. Complete bullshit. And I knew it was bullshit. And I just, when it comes to that type of crap, now I feel like they're trying to beef up the RICO case, right? Mm-hmm. It's called future acts of violence. Mm-hmm. Future acts of violence, the prosecution will determine death penalty or not. Mm-hmm. And boy, does this not fit that category. Future acts of violence while he's fighting a RICO death penalty.
Yeah, they tried to get you accused of something and set up something. Why don't you do a real quick timeline so people can see how short a time this all actually happened in? Just dates and pointers.
I was indicted in June. Wait, I was indicted in June of 2019. I got the new Folsom in July 2019. And all this year happened with this 115, October 2020. Steele started to talk with my attorneys around September 2020. Because he wanted to blow the whistle about what was going on with people falsifying documents on me and Ronnie and other people. And he said it. And, I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to send that to my lawyers because we're fighting death penalty and it's possible falsified shit in our files that the DA is going to fucking make a decision on. Like, you got to be kidding me. Of course I'm going to fucking use that. Mm-hmm. Of course I'm going to send him to my lawyers. I told him, don't even tell me. Tell my lawyers. And the DA is going to use falsified documents in my file or Ronnie's file to try to execute us? Mm-hmm. Like, hell no, dude, that's foul. So I sent him to my lawyers. And well, get this, a month later is when all this shit happened with this 115 weapon planted. And sure enough, what he told my lawyers is now coming to fruition, but not just on anybody, on me. Mm-hmm. Which pumps their theory of future acts of violence, right?
And it also shows their corruption and how far they'll go to take a man down.
To execute me. And I just, I'm sitting here thinking, well, here it is. They're going to make this decision on fucking bogus falsified documents in my file, Ronnie's file. and whoever else's file. And if one document is bogus and falsified, how do you know 100,000 of them aren't? Right?
Right.
You know, it's just like one contaminates the whole fucking crop of bad apples, man. So, I'm going through it at the time. I'm fighting all this crap, and then the worst part for me, baby girl. Well, there's a few of them, but when the officer gave your letter to this S&Y piece of shit down the tier, and then they told me he was a rapist. And the cops told me he was a rapist and he was going to parole.
You're trying to get you to go off on somebody, something, anything, weren't they?
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys, that's what I was going through at that time. I'll give you the next part 2 of this in the next video. So, with that, I'll end this video here. Thank you for you guys' support. Hit the like button, folks. Come on now, hit the like, subscribe, and share this video. Share my video. This is my view on the RICO case issues. The RICO case chronicle on 2Scoops view. So you guys take care. I send my love to the worthy. You know who you are. Stay solid.